Hey guys, welcome to Game 4 of the World Chess Championship 2010. This championship is played between Vishwanathan Anand and Topalov. And here is an image, a still from Game 4. And I also have the photo credits this time, which I was not able to find for the previous games. So let's dive into it. The scores, as a reminder for you, is 1.5 point each. And this is the fourth game now. Vishwanathan Anand has the white pieces and he opens with d4. Topalov, who has the black pieces, responds with knight to f6. We have c4 and e6. Knight to f3 and d5. This is the Queen's Gambit declined variation. We have g3. Now the plan is to fianchetto the bishop on this long diagonal, and d takes c4. Again, if you guys are planning to go after this pawn, I would suggest against it. If you want, you can put your queen on a4, give this king a check and pick this pawn up. But you don't really want to do that because this pawn is not really in a great position, and black will usually not try to defend it. So you have to continue with your plan, bishop to g2, and this is the Catalan opening, and this bishop, the light square bishop, is called the Catalan bishop. It's a very powerful piece in white's arsenal, and it uses to control this diagonal and have a lot of discovered attacks, and just keep an eye on all of these squares, especially these three squares, not this one, this c6, b7 and a8 square. And this rook on a8 is usually the target. So if you are playing with the black pieces, make sure you either capture this Catalan bishop on g2, which is a little difficult to do, but what you can make sure is move this rook from your a8 square to some different square once all of these pieces have developed. The sooner you do it, the better it is for you, so that this bishop will not keep eyeing this rook, because this rook is usually under attack. So after a lot of this information, we have bishop to b4 with check. We get bishop to b2 now, bishop to d2 now with just blocking the check, and a5. Defending this piece in case you want to capture. I'm going to capture it with my a pawn and have a semi-open file for the rook. And usually when you have fianchettoed the bishop, you should not allow this rook to get out from this square, especially on this semi-open file. It's usually not a good idea. So Anand doesn't capture, but he plays queen to c2, a developing move, and putting some pressure here on the h7 square. We get bishop takes d2 with check, and queen takes d2. Knight takes d2 is also a possibility, but Anand wants to protect his knight keep his knight on b1, and there is a reason for it, which will be revealed in a short time. We get c6 and a4, just defending against this b5 threat. b5, the threat is if you capture, I'm going to capture with my pawn, and this is a perfectly fine position. In fact, Topalov played this position against Kramnik in 2006, and he knew exactly what happens in this position. So I'm going to show you what happens after a takes b5. Again, this was not played in the game, but this was played in the game of Topalov against Kramnik in 2006. We get c takes b5, queen to g5, and castles. Now this queen after queen to g5 was attacking this piece here on g7 and this piece here on b5. You have to give up one of the pawns. There is nothing you can do. So black decides to castle and protect the g pawn. We get queen takes b5, and now knight b to d7, just developing move. Here there is a lot of threat. You have this piece that is hanging. Once this knight moves, this Catalan bishop again is eyeing this wonderful rook here on a1, and this was all played before Kramnik I believe, lost that game, and but he was prepared. He had a nice defense prepared. But Anand did not go for any of this because he was intelligent, and this is the World Chess Championship, so you want to do something different to catch your opponent off guard. So after b5, what Anand played was knight to a3. And this is a novelty move, as it has never been played before, or was never played before when back in 2010. After this move, Topalov went into a deep thought because he had prepared for this variation, but he was not prepared for knight to a3 variation. And this was the plus point for Vishwanathan Anand, because Topalov was losing a lot of time here, which meant he had to calculate a lot of variations, mainly how to defend against all the captures here. I mean, you can play either this bishop to a6, or you can play this bishop to d7. And the variations branch out, and you, as a grandmaster, you have to calculate all these things, or your position can crumble. So Topalov defends it perfectly. He plays bishop to d7. But now Anand plays knight to e5, attacking this bishop. So what are you going to do? He plays knight to d5, now getting in between of this bishop, controlling the wonderful diagonal, and we get e4, trying to kick away this knight, asking it, where do you want to go? The knight goes to b4, and from here it will control this square, and we have castles from both sides. Now it was okay to even capture this piece, but after captures you're going to get queen captures, and after you have a captures, not immediately capturing. First you will move the rook, and only then will you capture on this b file. Then you will have these three connected pawns, and black would be pretty happy with its position. But Anand did not go for it. He just kept the threat of knight captures on bishop alive, and he plays rook f to d1, putting some more pressure on this file. So soon to be open file. I mean, that was Anand's plan, just to push this d pawn to d5 and try get some exchanges going. And once all the exchanges are done, he wants to control this d file. That was his plan all along. And there is obviously a threat of this captures. But we have bishop to e8. Now Topalov wants to get away from this threat. So Anand pushes d5, and which was his plan. We get queen to d6, and this queen just attacks this knight here and asks, what do you want to do with this knight? Because your knight here on e5 is a dangerous piece. It was attacking a lot of squares, controlling a lot of squares, and you don't really want to keep this knight here for long. So you can also kick away the knight by playing knight to d7, but Topalov thinks that this move, queen to d6, is much easier. And it worked, because Anand's knight goes back to g4. But from here, now it controls these two squares, and it's still unclear what it wants to do. We get queen to c5, putting some pressure on this diagonal, attacking this f2 pawn. For now it's defended by these two pieces, so it's not really under threat, but you cannot even push this pawn forward and try to get some control over these squares, because it's currently pinned. So after queen to c5, we get knight to e3, now unpinning this pawn and defending this square, this very important d5 square, because there are possibilities of some captures happening on this square pretty soon. So knight b8 to a6, from here it goes to here, just trying to develop. And now d captures c6, b captures a4, not immediately capturing, because there is no way you can defend this pawn, so it can be captured anytime you want it. But first, removing the threat of this captures. because once you capture, it's going to come with a double attack on these two pieces. So you didn't have really a choice. We have knight A captures c4, getting rid of another pawn. And finally, bishop captures c6. Now, this bishop is also attacking this piece and indirectly staring at this wonderful Catalan bishop that white has. We get rook A to c1, trying to put some pressure on this file, as if once you move this piece, the queen will be under attack. And we have h6, defending against any threats in this position. Knight to d6, now opening up an attack from the rook to the queen, so the queen has to move, and the queen moves to a7. Now if you look at this position, if any of the grandmasters were blindfolded and asked them to pick a side, everybody would put white, mainly because look at black's pieces. They are all stuck on the queen side in a corner and completely away from the king. And white pieces now control a lot of key squares, and it will jump into the attack. The knight can go to g4, it can then attack these squares. This wonderful knight is controlling a lot of key squares, d squares that it's controlling. So let's show it to you again. And it's just amazing. Compared that with the black's knight here, there is nothing going on the a file. It's controlling a2. It's controlling c2. There is nothing going on c file either, because this rook is put here just to, it's definitely going to either c4 or c3 and then trying to jump to the king side. So that's useless. This knight is also covering d3, which we can agree that it's pretty important. But given a choice, any grandmaster would choose white over black in this position. So after queen to a7, we have knight to g4. Now the knight is finally ready to get into some action. And we have rook a to d8. Finally, the rook from a8 is getting out of this attack from this Catalan bishop, and it just wants to relax here on this file for some time. It wants to pin this knight. So for now, this knight can't really move because you have a queen that is behind it. Oops, that was not played. After rook a to d8, we get knight captures a6 with check. It's a piece sacrifice for two pawns, but look at the position that white achieves. She takes h6, you have to take it, and now queen takes h6. Look at this queen controlling all the squares in front of the king. So if you can imagine this king being given a check here, it would be checkmate. So just imagine if this rook can magically come to this square, it would be checkmate, right? Obviously it's not that easy, but black has to somehow defend. And right now its pawn, this f7 pawn is being a weakness because it's not allowing the queen to defend the 7th rank. Or the rooks can come to the 7th rank and then defend it. So that's not happening here for now. So Topalov pushes f6, now creating some breathing space, and you can bring your queen into the game. And this is a nice position where finally Anand pushes e5. And if you have this Catalan bishop, and if you're able to push e5 with some possible discovered attacks, it's always good to do that. This e5 is an important break in this Catalan attack. So as black, you have to always remember for this e5 move. Now this is a good time for you to pause the video if you guys have some time and think, if you are black here, what would you do? You have a lot of options. You have this bishop that's staring at this Catalan bishop. Do you want to capture it? Do you want to bring this rook up to d7 and try to control this 7th file? Or do you want to just put the queen and closer to the king, controlling the 7th file? You also could bring the rook here, you could capture this pawn, and these pieces can always try to jump into the game. So it's up to you. What do you want to do? The correct move here is to bring the queen closer to the king, and you should have picked queen to g7. Just trying to get rid of these queens and try to have a better position. After queen captures g7 with check, king captures g7, bishop captures c6. Now you finally give back the material, because now again if you capture it with the knight, you get rook captures and it's equal material, but white will have a good advantage because it is already infiltrating your positions. So f captures e5, and now bishop captures a4. This Catalan bishop again survives the attack and now is ready to attack some more pieces, or just come back here and defend these two squares, because this is a passed pawn and it's eventually going to be pushed. None of this was played. Unfortunately, Topalov couldn't find that queen move, but instead he played bishop captures g2. This bishop captures g2, and he said, I'm going to get rid of this Catalan bishop because it's a pain in my position. So this is the losing move, because Anand quickly takes advantage of this position and he plays e captures f6. Now the threat obviously is pushing this pawn, giving king a check, and you eventually will either pick up this rook or pick up the queen, and you're definitely going to bring this rook into the game. It's just going to be a pretty nice attack for you. So after e takes f6, we have rook takes d6, and it is important here to show you what happens if you try to save this bishop. So let's say you don't play rook takes d6 and you try to save the bishop. Bishop goes to d5 instead, and now you're still attacking this piece, but you're trying to save the bishop. But unfortunately, this is checkmate in 8 moves. It's forced checkmate in 8. Again, if you guys have some time, pause the video and try to find it. And I'm just going to show it to you. Queen to g6 check first. Now you get king to h8. Now rook to d4. Again, the threat here is rook to h4 checkmate. So you have to defend against that threat. And the only defense here is bishop to e4, getting rid of this bishop, and or getting rid of the queen here. Eventually the queen has to come to h7. Rook takes e4. Now queen to h7, proactively moving the queen. We get rook to h4 nonetheless. Now you're definitely going to pick up the queen, but you again have to defend this, and you cannot go try grabbing this knight here, which is undefended. What you can do is rook to d7, again trying to protect this. Now you get knight to f7 check, just blocking the defense, and we get rook d takes d7. Queen takes f7, not with the check, but you have to capture. There is no other option for you. Rook takes f7, a wonderful queen sacrifice for rook to c8 check, rook to f8, and rook takes f8. This is checkmate. So if you had tried to save your bishop back in this position after e captures f6, you cannot try to save the bishop. And that's the variation that I showed you is exactly what happens. So the move that Topalov played was rook takes d6, and from here again it's +9. So Vishwanathan Anand just capitalizes on everything and plays rook takes d6. He just wants to give up some pieces back just to get some advantage, but now nothing works. Bishop to e4 was tried, just keeping an eye on this h7 square, but now just rook captures e6, opening up an attack on this piece here, this bishop. Knight to d3 saying, okay, if you want to capture this bishop, at least what I can do is capture your rook here, and you cannot give me any checks in the future. So just defending. Rook to c2 defends the rook and gets out of any attack. You are still attacking this piece, by the way. And now queen to h7. Finally, you have to try to get these queens off the board. First, f7 check. White decides I'm going to give you a check first, and queen takes f7. Now we get rook takes e4, and now the threat is rook to g4, and this would be checkmate. So you have to defend against this, And the only defense is, there are a couple of ways you could do it. You could capture the knight here, but once you capture with the knight on f2, all white is going to do is put the rook to f4 and attack the queen. Either you have to give up the queen or you have to give up your knight here. There is nothing to do. So the second option is, which is what Topalov chose, was queen to f5, now defending the square. But again, this is mate in 6 moves, and I hope you guys can find it. The move to find was rook to e7. The threat obviously here is now checkmate on this square. You have to defend it, the g7 square. And what are you going to do? All you can do is try to prolong it, because this is, no matter what you do, it's a mate in 6 moves, 5 moves, since you already made a move. And this was the final position on the board, as Topalov realized he cannot continue defending the position, and he just quit. There was nothing for him to do. He can try to give a check, but then of course you are defending with your rook, so there's nothing you can do. What you can do here is, and I'm going to show you, rook to f7, defending the square. But now finally this rook comes into the action, and rook to c8 with check. We get queen captures c8. Now you have to move away from the defense from these files, and just simply king to g6 check. The king has to again move. It has to go to h8. It cannot go here, because then queen captures as checkmate. King to h8. We have queen to f5, h5 check, and king to g7. And now finally the queen is ready to capture here with check, but instead rook captures f7 with check. Now you block off these 2 squares. This is covered by the queen. This is covered by the queen. The only square that black king has is g8, so that's where it has to go. And once it goes to g8, queen to h7 is now checkmate. So Topalov knew all of this. That's why on this position on move 32, he resigned, and now the scores stand after game 4. The scores are 2.5 Vishwanathan Anand, 1.5 Veselin Topalov. So I hope you guys enjoyed this amazing game, and this novelty from Vishwanathan Anand on move 10, where he moved his knight from b to a3, and he just caught Topalov completely off guard, and I wish he had an amazing game. I enjoyed this game. I hope you guys did too. That's it from me. Namaste. See you next time.